Hi guys, for this episode of On a Budget, we're going to be talking about food waste and how you can reuse and use food scraps in your kitchen. Food scraps are the leftover tidbits or parts of food, whether it be meat, vegetables, extras that you would normally throw away. We're going to show you some ways that you can reuse those food scraps and make them into something delicious. Wasting your leftovers or food scraps can cost you a lot of money if you're constantly throwing away your weekly budget of groceries. Every year in America, about 108 billion pounds of food is wasted. That equates to about 40% of the average person's grocery list. So imagine going and getting your groceries every week or bi-weekly or monthly or however you do it, and 40% of that is getting thrown away and not utilized. That means that about 200 to 400 billion dollars in food crops and food are wasted. And that can equate to $3,000 to $5,000 of food waste for a family of four. So I myself would like to keep $3,000 to $5,000 in my bank account and be able to be thrifty and reuse a lot of my food scraps. So we just got through Thanksgiving. If you celebrated that, we're going to go into the holiday season and be celebrating our winter holidays like Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, winter solstice, anything like that. If you have a leftover turkey or ham or you made some type of meat, whatever that is, you can use that to make a broth. So you can see here we have leftover turkey bits. We can toss that in a pot and get that simmering. We can add in vegetable scraps. If you remember in a previous episode of On a Budget, I mentioned to keep all of your vegetable scraps in a bag in the freezer, and then eventually you can make stock or broth out of them. So here I have some carrot tops, some leaves of cabbage, some chunks of celery. You could add kale to it. Any type of vegetables that maybe you used to stuff inside your turkey or your ham or whatever you're making, you can toss those in. Then we're just going to add some water to that and let that simmer. A great thing to add to this stock too is if you have discount pre-bagged vegetables, like maybe you have some slaw like we have here or the kale, you can toss that in, light up your burner and let that simmer. Once that comes to a good boil, you can add seasonings like salt, pepper, some garlic, herbs, anything like that to flavor it. Another trick I have for some food scraps is if you have some not so good looking oranges, these ones here are kind of yellow, they're not even orange, they're getting bruised, they're out of season, they're just not looking their best. You bought them or they started to go bad. Or they don't taste as good because they are out of season. A great thing you can do with these is cut them up and make potpourri. You can use this potpourri to make things like garland or put them on with a sprig of pine on a gift. You can use these to decorate the house, make the house smell good. So what you're going to do there is take your orange and cut it into as thin slices as you can. And then you're going to lay them out on a paper towel to help absorb that extra moisture. We want to get the juice out of there because we are going to slowly dry them in the oven. You want to make sure that your oven is set at 200 to 225 and no higher than 225 because we don't want to cook or brown them. We just want to basically dehydrate them. So once you have the juices out, you can use bits of paper towel, smush them down. A little trick I have is if you have a rolling pin, you can take a rolling pin and go over the paper towel, the two sandwiched pieces of paper towel to get out that extra juice and extra moisture. And then you're going to want to line them on a baking sheet, preferably with a piece of parchment paper You could also use wax or paper or foil if you don't have parchment paper. This is just going to help protect your sheet pans and help actually absorb some of that extra moisture that's in them so they dry out faster. And the last tip I have for you is to reuse the pumpkin scraps that you might have used to make your pumpkin pie, or like we did, we made pumpkin cinnamon rolls. There's all that pulp and all those seeds that are left over. Instead of throwing those out, we toss those in the freezer or the fridge, and you can save them, and then you can make toasted pumpkin seeds, which could be a nice little treat and appetizer to some of your holiday meals. So here I'm just taking out that frozen pumpkin. I let it thaw so it gets to room temperature, and then I'm picking out the seeds. I gently dried them off on the paper towel so they weren't too wet, and then I could toss a little olive oil on them, and then you could either make them savory with some salt and pepper, maybe some cayenne, or you can make them sweet and put some pumpkin pie spice, nutmeg, cinnamon, and sugar on them with a little salt, and you'd have a sweet and salty, crunchy treat. I hope you guys were inspired by this video and use some of the ideas to reuse food scraps in your own home. And I hope you have a great holiday.